Hello, this is Brendan Lee, and this is my usability test and web design. The site I reviewed was MapQuest Driving Directions. So my summary for this site was there was a bit of some pros and cons. As we can see here, the site used, just like any other standard navigational website, you were able to go from a location from where you were to the next one that you wanted to go to. And as well as the site offers different ways of transportation. Say, for example, you didn't have a car. You could either walk there or take a bus, or it would tell you how long it would take you to take a bicycle there. As well as the site, it gives like a little feature in the corner where it'll give different recommendations of gas stations, restaurants, and any other places if there was anything specific you were looking for or anything broad that you wanted the site to specifically locate for you. The problem that we had with the site was that it was basically just a navigation site, but it did not work as a GPS. So it would pretty much just be a map, and it would not tell you it would not follow like it would for Google Maps. As well as the site itself did not always pinpoint the location from where you were starting. And sometimes it would take you to like a completely different state. As well as the locations in the area will not always be shown on the site. So there could be like something that you know is close by that will not show up or appear using the website. And for my next slide, I will show you an example of that. So as we can see for my analysis, I took a mini test to show my results of what it's like using the site. So for the first example, I used MapQuest Driving, and I entered gas stations near me using the icon in the corner. As you can see in this little image right here, for the third example, it has an icon where it'll show you recommendations for all the gas stations. And so for such, I clicked gas stations, and it pulled up this list here. While this isn't technically incorrect, my next example was Google Maps, and I typed in, as we can see in the search bar, gas stations near me. All the gas stations in my area were clearly shown on this side, whereas this one is not entirely close. Plus the list itself do not match. And then I figured, well, because I clicked a list and I did not type in directly, what happens if I were to go into the search bar itself and type in gas stations near me, which is what I did. So with the third example here, I went back to the site, typed in gas stations near me, and as soon as I did, it sent me all the way to Florida, not even anywhere remotely close to where I was located. And the text I had above was deleted. So with that, it made the site a little complicated for me to use. Here we have the mobile view of what it would look like normally and what it would look like sideways. So for the normal view, it would look exactly the same as the site. Only difference is that the side menu of where you would like to go and where you would like to end up takes up the entire screen, covering the map entirely. Whereas if you were to put it to the side, and as I clicked on the side view of find a place, it gives off the list of recommendations that I previously mentioned. And it does show a little bit of the map. The only difference between the site and the web and the mobile version is the colors kind of change a little bit. The site has more of a purple, where as we can see here, this is more of a blue in the hamburger menu as well as the icons. The good thing about the mobile version is that it does follow the principle of mobile first. It follows the principle of being able to push, scroll, as well as pinch in order to zoom in and out of the map, touch if you want to push any buttons or icons, such as find a place, where it gives you a list of places you could go. You can scroll up and down on the list when it provides you one, so you can find any specific location you'd like to go for. So the summary of my usability test, I decided to display an image of what it would be. So I had the site listed on the side, as well as the users I would like to use. So I decided to use my father and my two brothers. So the introduction, I would have them all introduce themselves and ask them how they feel comfortably about using technology. And then I would ask them how often they would use navigation sites to see where they would feel comfortable with using this site. So for my father, Bruce Lee, I asked him how he felt about using technology and how he felt using about navigation sites. He told me as a truck driver that he frequently uses navigation sites, and but he was not very strong when it came to technology. My second user, my older brother Jordan, he said that he was moderate with technology, a lot better than the other users, such as my father and my younger brother Joseph, and he rarely used navigation sites since he never traveled that much. As for the third and final user, my younger brother Joseph, he is not that good with technology, but he's a lot better than my father, just not as good as Jordan. And he responded that he frequently uses navigation sites, just not the same type that like my father uses. So after the introductions, I decided to do a warm-up, and I would ask all users 3 simple questions, starting with how they felt about the site when they opened it up, what they felt like with the focus or like the point of the site and why people would use it at all, and who would frequently use the site. So we had first with my father. He first thought, for the first question, he thought the site was pretty basic, nothing fancy, just a normal navigational site. He thought the focus was just pretty much anyone who needed to use the site to where they needed to go. Nothing crazy, just from simply going from point A to point B. And the users he thought would probably be somewhere in any range from someone who's starting to drive versus someone who's experienced driving, as long as the site worked normally for them. As for the second user, Jordan, for the first question, he thought the site seemed normal, nothing crazy, nothing fancy, just like my father responded. He thought the focus was strictly for navigation, nothing crazy, nothing advanced with that. And he thought the site would be used for young adults who travel frequently. And finally, for the third user, Joseph, he said that they all 3 responded that the site was just average, nothing crazy. The only thing he didn't like about the appearance of the site was the color scheme. He thought the focus of the site was also for just pretty much navigation, nothing advanced with that. They all respond with the same thing of a plain, normal navigation site, and the focus is just getting from point A to point B. But he responded that the users that would use the site more often would be high schoolers and teenagers, just like himself, since he thought that most of the younger crowd would like to go party, as he quote, and go try to find new places to explore. And then the third step for my usability tests were the task. I asked them to first find the nearest fast food restaurant from their home. Then I had them see if they could find out how long it would take for them to go on a bicycle, and then, without typing in anything with the icon, to find the nearest gas station near them. So if we remember from the third slide for my site analysis, I mentioned that there was an issue with pinpointing location. And that's where Bruce had the struggle. He, with no assistance at all, he was sent to Texas instantly. And without assisting him at all, as he was trying to figure it out, he could not find it for the life of him. Thus making it difficult for him to use the second task of trying to find out how long it would take him to get there on a bicycle. And with that out of the way, we decided to see if he could figure out the third one without any faulties, to see if it would still pinpoint him back to Ohio. And when he tried to use the buttons, he could not figure it out. And then he asked me for assistance on the language part, which I could not assist him with, since there was no translation for him from Vietnamese to English. The next user was Jordan, and when I asked him to use the site to find the fast food restaurant, it was able to work for him for a split second, and thus he was able to find where the nearest fast food location was, but it took him about a couple of minutes. And then using the site, it took him another couple of minutes to see if he could pinpoint on how long it would take for him to get to the nearest fast food restaurant on a bicycle, and he was able to do it with a bit of a struggle. And then once we got to the third part, he could not perform it because the website decided to just completely change the navigation and set him straight to Texas, just like the first user. So he could not complete the third task. Finally, the last user, Joseph, was given the task of trying to find the nearest fast food restaurant. He could not find it because, like the previous two users, he was sent to Texas. But eventually, he noticed that on the side of the website, using the mobile version, there was an icon that could pinpoint his location that the previous two users could not find out. So when he clicked that icon, it set him to his exact location. So he was able to find the nearest fast food restaurant. And then he was able to complete the second task of finding out how long it would take him on a bicycle. And then while using the third task, he noticed that some of the locations of the gas stations that were near him were not shown, even though he could see them across the street. So he had an issue with that. Overall, he was the only one to complete all three tasks with no issues. The final stage for my usability test was to pretty much get an overall sight of how they felt about using the website. At first, they all said that they thought it was a normal navigational site with no issues, no problem, except Joseph saying that the only issue was the color scheme. However, the first user, Bruce, said that he did not enjoy the site very well because of how complicated the site worked, because he could not find his exact location, but he would have no issue with using it again because he's the type of man who would like to try it out to see if he could figure it out. The second user, Jordan, said that he was not very pleased with it, and he did not like how, like my father, said that the site did not focus on the exact location. It was not pinpoint accurate. And finally, with Joseph, the only user to use the site on a mobile phone, said that the only issue he had was the color scheme, that it did not work as a GPS, as well as he did not like how some places in the area that he knew was on the map was not visibly shown. With that, we come to my redesign strategy. My first strategy would be to create a new color scheme. As we can see on the site on the image that I've displayed, the colors are not very elegant. They're mostly just standard purple with a hint of blue, as well as a lot of white, which makes it a little difficult, especially since there's no dark mode version. So with that, I would like to create a new color scheme to help with that. So if users turn on dark mode, they can have a dark mode. And if they want it on brightness, they can have normal brightness. And the color overall will just need to be more creative. My second strategy would be to create this site to create a GPS system. So instead of it just being a map, it would actually work as a GPS. So you could use on the road while you're driving, just like using Google Maps. My third strategy would be translation. As we heard before, my father, Bruce Lee, could not understand the site overall. Despite being a truck driver, he would prefer to switch the language from English to Vietnamese. There is no feature for that on the site. So with that, I would like to create a translation so that it can be translated to any language for any other users who might have any difficulty of reading the site. My fourth strategy, and the most important one that all three users had, would be location. The site itself struggles on pinpointing your exact location. So with that, I want to be able to adjust the GPS or the location system on this site so it pinpoints your exact location, as well as shows exactly where all the other places and locations are without it not being hidden away or shown on a random list. And with that, we come to my resources, my works cited of using Google Maps, MapQuest driving, as well as a mobile first strategy and design book. So with that, I thank you for listening to my presentation, and I thank you for your time.